My name is Lois McMullan. I've been part of the Arts and Crafts Center for a number of years now, and in the process I have, since I retired, learned to do many different types of things. And one of the things that I learned when I was part of a group called the Thread Benders is how to make fabric balls. One of the people in the group, Johnette Roberts, let me borrow this book and has since told me I can keep it on how to do kimi. I think that's how you pronounce the name. It's an old Japanese skill that they learned how to do, and in the process over the years, instead of having a soft core ball, they have used styrofoam. Styrofoam is, you have two different kinds of styrofoam. This hard styrofoam and then the other styrofoam that sort of flakes when you try to cut into it. You cannot use the normal type of styrofoam to do this project. You have to use the hard core styrofoam, which is rather smooth on the outside. And you can draw on it. It cuts really well when you use your X-Acto knife. So in the process, you're not flaking everything up. If you have that happen, you know you're using the wrong kind of styrofoam. The first thing in this process is to decide which pattern you want to use. Now this book has patterns in the back of the book that shows you exactly the right dimensions for the ball you choose to work on. And if you want to come up and look at this, you can. It's
I will.
okay. All right. She doesn't want to be in the shop. And it's used usually for, this is a 4-inch ball, or the beginning projects in the book are for 3-inch balls, which are, there's a difference of that size. And then these will work for the 3-inch or the 4-inch, depending on which one they tell you to use. What I did was I got a piece of transparency paper, which is a clear paper, and cut out all the shapes so that they will fit on the ball when you use it. They give you two different sizes of pattern pieces. One for actually using it on the ball, and then one for cutting out your fabric, because you have to have a bigger pattern so that the fabric will go down in the lines that you cut in the styrofoam. So this is the first one I did, which is just with the outline of the pieces on the ball. So I put down the piece on the ball and I just went around it for where they show you in the book how to do that. And on the back side of this, you can see where you can do it online to get the book if you'd like to have the book. Do you see that, John? So I did this one in just an ink pen, depending on what kind of fabric you want to use. If you use a white fabric, you probably wouldn't want to do it in ink because it would bleed right through the fabric. So I get these little fabric markers, which are water. They will just come off with water, and that way you don't have any markings on the actual fabric when you start doing it.
Do you pin your pattern down on the ball?
Yeah, I'm going to show you how to do that. I have this tape here, and I find that using the centimeter side or the millimeter side, which is the one that is in millimeters and centimeters, it works better because it tells you that you use the equator of the ball, and I wrap around, and I use a little pin to hold it, and I wrap it around the equator of the ball. And it says, okay, for this pattern, we're going to, it is 32 centimeters around. it's going to tell me to mark every, if you want an 8-section ball, you have to mark it every 4 centimeters. If you have a 4-section ball, you mark it 8 centimeters each one around. And that's where you get your markings for the equator. And that's what I did on both of these balls. If you want to come up and look at those, you can. And then the next step is to actually carve it. So you're going to go on the lines you drew, you're going to take your X-Acto knife, and you're actually going to carve on your lines. So you're going to carve down on your lines, maybe halfway through the X-Acto knife, halfway through the X-Acto knife, on all of the pieces. And this one, I did make one around the equator, but on my particular ball here, I didn't do that. I decided to just make one piece instead of 2, but you can do that. You can do the whole ball the same color if you'd like. It all depends on what you want, what your aesthetic is. And that's this one. And then that's what it looks like after you've finished putting all the pieces in. I will demonstrate on how to do one. I just want to give you an idea of what's involved. Put it on there, and I try to do as long a line as I can all the way around the ball. And in each section I put a little glue. Okay? Mark around the ball and then cut it into, sorry,
Mark around about 8 equal sections.
8. Okay, so this ball, and I'll have to see how much around this one is. And sometimes these balls aren't exact. So you sort of have to say, okay, this looks like it would be 24, which I think it is. Yeah, 24. So this is 24 centimeters around. So they want me to do it into 8. And being a math teacher, you know, okay, how many, you have 8 sections, how many is going to be in each section? So we're going to do each section has 3. So I'm going to go from 0 to 3, and then you have to do your multiplication table for 3. 6, 9, 12, 15, 18. Even though they might be different brands, they're pretty good about showing you where the North Pole and the South Pole are. Now, with this one, I'm going to take my piece, and I've varied it somewhat over the years. The piece that is I varied it really well. And it tells you in the back that this is the first one, and it's probably the first one back here. This is what the acetate looks like. You can buy it at Walmart. Reflections has A, and that's all you have because the sections are all exactly the same thing. So this smaller section is for putting it on the ball. The bigger section is for cutting out the fabric. Because you have to have sort of like a little hem, like if you were. So you're going to put on, let's see, how's this one done? I think it's done point down, double. These anymore. But if you'd like to, you can. So I know that there's a dot there and a dot there, so you're just going to connect the dots.
Yeah.
I think you have more control not having to hold that piece on there to connect the dots. Especially when you start getting into the more complicated pieces, because some of these balls have like 32 pieces in them. And the more pieces you have, the more complicated it gets. And then the same on the top. Now the only difference with, you can vary the shapes, and some of I cut out the shape for one end and made it longer on the other end so that you have a different, it looks a little bit different when you start putting the fabric on. Where you're not, going over the equator, you wouldn't cut the line. I just use that as a reference. So you cut around. Of course, if you get I did a 5-inch ball the other day. It's the first time and when you do those, you have to sort of make your own patterns because they say to enlarge or to reduce. This is what you do, and you're on your own when you do that. But it took me a long time to get to the point where I was doing for the fabric. So you can see how much bigger the fabric's going to be. Sometimes it's almost too much, but when you first start, you want to do it the way the directions tell you, and then you can cheat later on. So in this one, we're going to alternate these two fabrics. It's going to be the polka dots and the circles, and polka dot circle all the way around. Or you could do the whole thing, the one color, or you could do one half this and one half that. It doesn't, it depends on your aesthetic, what you like to do. So, what would you like to do?
Alternating.
Huh?
Alternating.
Alternating like it is in the picture. And as you can see, that's an alternate too, where they curved the line. So instead of going straight down, you would curve it, swirl it sort of. And I haven't quite understood how that's done because they don't give you really good directions on that part. Okay. So let me get my scissors in here. So for this, since they're 16 sections all together, I would make 8 out of this fabric and 8 out of that. And if I was home with my iron, I would have it make sure it's nice and toned down here. And I usually am pretty, man, these scissors are, I guess I need a new pair of scissors. I might get that other pair out. And that's pretty good. I mean, it's not exact, but it'll work. Because most of what you don't want is going to go inside, down in the valleys anyway. And I have my little specialty tool. This is a putty knife or a oil painter's knife for doing oil painting. But it works really good with this. So I just hold it in the center, see where my lines are, and then I just stuff it in to the lines I created. Now once you get going with these, yeah, I usually can make one from start to finish, like that size, in about 3 hours. I can do the whole thing. In the beginning, it was not the case.
You don't put any stuffing or anything under them. They almost look like they are.
You can do stuffing. You can do batting under there.
Does this have any batting under?
No.
They look kind of look
But
like
they look it, don't they?
Yes, that's why I asked you.
That one does not. So that's groups of whole nerves. sit and watch TV and do this and have a good old time.